Affixes have continued to be a controversial topic amongst the community, especially after last week's announcement. There were many different reactions in the community commenting on the fact that Bolstering and Sanguine are remaining, to critiquing the new level 4 bucket. Okay. The war against affixes has been ongoing for some time, with some players arguing that affixes shouldn't exist at all because it doesn't let players enjoy the dungeon, while others argue that they enjoy the week-to-week changes that the affixes provide. We've seen continued nerfs to affixes that have stuck around from the start of M+ in Legion. If you compare Bolstering from Legion to Bolstering now, there's a pretty big difference in its power. Yeah, so like, I think this is the argument that the developers have, is they're like, well, Bolstering used to be like way worse. And it's like, that doesn't matter. In my opinion, that doesn't matter. It's still shitty now. It doesn't matter if it was way worse before. So when we were given the opportunity to discuss the war within Morgan Day, we gave them some time to discuss the overarching philosophy of affixes. Okay. Here's what Ian said. This has obviously been a huge topic in the community in recent weeks. Getting in the nuts only hurts when you aren't numb to it. Yeah. Getting kicked in the nuts. Yeah. This has obviously been a huge topic in the community in recent weeks. And it's been a huge topic within our WoW team in recent weeks. Okay, good to know. We're far from done when it comes to the current state of beta. We're looking to roll out a couple more pretty significant swings in how we approach the affixes and the Mythic Plus system. Okay. That sounds promising. Pretty significant swings. As testing continues in the coming weeks, I don't want to get ahead of spoiling what all those will be, but stay tuned for some forum and blog posts and then for the next beta. Okay, fair enough. They're not ready, but there's something coming. That's actually fine. Morgan Day also mentioned some of the reasons that they had picked the affixes in season 7, or sorry, in level 7 from last week's announcement, mentioning that they didn't want any additional adds or mechanics that could occur. So this doesn't make any sense to me. This response is really dumb. We're going to talk about it. Here's what Morgan said. To speak to the post we made, he's talking about last week's announcement, and basically he's mostly talking about why they're keeping these affixes here, okay? This is mostly what Morgan is talking about. I think one of the major design goals that we could try to reiterate on more is that we are trying to create we are not trying to create new nameplates in the gameplay space. We're not trying to create things that might be considered an ability or mechanic on a boss fight. So that's why they got rid of like Spiteful, because Spiteful adds it puts a new monster in play with a new, bar over its head. You're not spawning an ad. There's no quaking or volcanic, where we feel like these mechanics are kind of just happening. The things that we wanted to focus on were things that felt more like an overarching rule change. Like all trash in the dungeon behaves in this way or reacts in this way. And you can plan for that really easily if you know it's coming, essentially is what he's saying. It's not something that would surprise you. You can hopefully approach the polls differently or approach the dungeon differently to combat those affixes. That was really what we were focusing on when we did keep. So here's what he's trying to say. He wants these affixes here to like be a blanket across the entire dungeon, which obviously this applies to every monster that you kill. And it's going to change the way you think about what you're going to do this week, which is what all of these do. If you get raging, you have to be really careful once the mobs start to get lower in their life pool. You want to make sure that you kill them really quickly once they get lower in life, or you have to CC them. But you can't with raging, right? So you just have to kill them. You basically just have to run away and kill them, which is why this affix is kind of bad. Bolstering is just like, hey, if there's a couple of little ads in here and then one big ad, you're kind of fucked. Which I just don't think this doesn't really make sense with what Morgan is saying here. Yeah, okay, they want it to be, they don't want to add a mechanic like there's a new mob spawning or whatever, but you're still adding a mechanic to each pull by adding bolstering into the game. Because there are many packs of mobs in many of the dungeons that I've tested. Let's think about Priory of the Sacred Flame, for example. Do you know how many like tough mini bosses are inside of Priory? There's probably like 8 of them, or like 6 to 8 of them in the outdoor zone alone. before you even get into the cathedral. There's like 6 like super mobs that are like captains or whatever. They have way more health and they have special abilities. So if you pull one of those captains with a bunch of other mobs, they're all going to bolster the captain and you're going to die. That to me is adding a mechanic to the fight. Yeah, it's not showing up as a brand new ad with a bar over its head and causing like mayhem. Like, oh my God, there's like 6 Spitefuls and I can't target the enemy. I understand. That's a good one to get rid of. I understand getting rid of Spiteful. But Morgan's logic here just doesn't make sense to me. The level 7 bucket is still adding mechanics to the dungeon that dramatically change what you're going to be doing. And I thought the purpose of affixes was not to do that. Shift the source of challenge to the dungeon itself by simplifying affix design. That's not what this does. This complicates that. Because now I have to be very careful that I'm not pulling like a captain, or else he's going to get bolstered and then we're all going to die. I have to be very careful with bursting not to pull more than 8 mobs. Even 8 is kind of pushing it. If they all die at the same time, you might just die. Okay. Raging, I have to just run away from raging mobs because they can't be crowd controlled. And now there's like a bunch of them. They're all raging at the same time and they're just going to kill me because I can't stop them from casting their spells. And let's say you combine raging with attuned, right? Non-boss enemies with mana inflict 20% more magic damage. And you're telling me I can't crowd control them now? Sure, I can kick them individually. What if there's 5 of them? What if they're all casting Holy Bolt at me? I'm gonna die. Like, so I just don't, I think what they said they were going to do doesn't make sense with what these mechanics do. And I just don't think Morgan is addressing that at all. He's just not addressing that, in my opinion. In the end, they, meaning Morgan and Ian, did mention a couple more pretty significant swings and taking a step back and revisiting all things in this next iteration. So that's exciting news. So I agree, that's exciting. Here's my guess. My guess is that the level 7 bucket is going to stay the same. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't think anything's happening to these 4. I think the big swing that they're taking is going to be on these 2 affixes, Tyrannical and Fortified, which is good. That is a good thing. I hope I'm right. I mean, I hope these change as well, genuinely. But like, I do hope the big swing that they're taking is like, I don't know, completely getting rid of these, potentially. Hey, Raffle, what's going on? Let's keep reading. Part of the answer, I think, to the question of what they're going to do is actually in the next paragraph. So let's keep reading. Weekly keys versus key pushing. They continue to expand on some of their philosophies regarding affixes in general, noting that the primary purpose of affixes is not to add difficulty, but to add variety. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, right? Come on. Can we just say that's kind of bullshit? Like, these add difficulty, significant difficulty. They don't just add variety. It's not like, ooh, we get bolstering this week. What a cool variety in affixes. I'm so excited. I was getting so bored of bursting last week. Ah, shucks. I just want some bolstering. Like, that's not variety. It's like, fuck you. Welcome to bolstering week where nobody plays. Sanguine is the worst. Yeah, it's sanguine, right? Let's just look past this. For the average Mythic Plus player who wants to get some loot and fill out their vault, Ian explains they are seeing consistent participation and success rates week over week. So they're talking about the casual player here, right? Let's say somebody who just logs in and does a couple keys or whatever, right? And they believe that this is that for this audience, the affixes survey value. So they're saying, okay, these affixes here, they represent diversity, they represent variety in content, and that's good for the more casual player who just logs in and like fills out their vault every week and isn't, let's say, pushing. Okay. No, it doesn't. It adds difficulty, but sure, it also does add variety. I'll give you the variety part, but it also adds difficulty, but it doesn't matter. Then there's another type of player, the players who like to push keys at the highest end of the system, whether that be for the title or just to improve their personal best. For many years, these players have identified and valued a push week, which is a week that has favorable affixes and would allow players to push the highest keys possible, right? So in the past, it's been like volcanic, maybe bursting. It's like volcanic bursting and like tyrannical, probably like tyrannical storming bursting, because then you can just like pull tons of mobs and your healer just has to worry about bursting, and that's kind of it, right? That's what they're talking about there. Other weeks with less favorable affixes just make the whole week feel dead, or people don't want to play because of those affixes, and that happens a lot of the time. Hint, hint, bolstering, sanguine, raging. I like bursting. I don't know why. I like bursting too. I'm a healer. I actually don't mind bursting. I actually like it. Players who know that you can't beat the best time this week. Well, players know that you can't beat the best time, so they know that like it's a bad week. We can't push. We're all just gonna take a break. Ian addresses these concerns, noting that when you have a variation from week to week, there will be some outcomes that are more favorable to others, and agrees that this is frustrating and getting in the way of the experience. Okay, good. Ian agrees. They mentioned that affixes impact these groups of players differently, with affixes like storming and bursting being considered free by higher players, right? That's what I just said. But actually having a significant impact on lower key success rates compared to, say, bolstering or raging. They're basically saying, like, for the casual player, bolstering and raging like doesn't matter. For the high level player, bolstering, raging does matter, but storming, bursting doesn't matter. So the question is, like, how do you balance these things, right? I think the easiest win-win for affixes is also to add positive consequences. Well, we'll see. That's what they're doing. But I think the negative side effects to these are actually way worse. But let's keep reading here. They believe that it comes down to how those groups play, with the high-end group likely to push things to the limit and trying to pull as many groups as possible, and affixes having different effects on different playstyles. So what's the solution? Ian says, I don't think the right answer is to remove the affixes for all players. Okay, I don't think anybody thought they were going to go that direction. I actually don't want this either. I don't mind affixes in the game. I'm not like a no affix Andy. I want them. It seems that they understand the problem that high key pushers seem to face, and also have identified there are two distinct groups of people who have different goals and interact with affixes differently. You have people who are doing weekly keys with some that want some variation from week to week, and then there's high key pushers that find the variation frustrating from week to week. It looks like they're planning on some big changes to address this. I don't think this is Ian talking. I don't think the right answer is to remove affixes for all players. However, we are discussing some solutions that may allow players who are forced on the competitive optimization and perfection aspect of the dungeon system to have less randomness and variation in their week over week experience. This is kind of wild. So he's saying, okay, the more casual people like the variety, but the high-end people don't. They want to be able to plan for it to have a consistent, like, we're going to push, and then we're going to push, and we're going to push. But guess what? The affixes that we push on are not available until 3 weeks from now. So we got to, like, slog through all this until 3 weeks from now, and then we can push again. So it sounds like Ian is saying they might introduce potentially, like, static affixes at the highest level. Here's what I'm thinking might end up happening, okay? I don't know what you guys think about this, but maybe if you get to a plus 20 key, if you're able to get to plus 20s and you time every plus 20 on both weeks, tyrannical and fortified, although they might do away with that, who knows? You time both weeks, then you unlock the ability to make your own key. And then you can put whatever affixes on it that you want. That would actually be kind of cool. And then the high-end people who care about this shit can go make the keys that they think are going to be the best. And then you have like a new leaderboard, right? And the leaderboard just shows the top teams with the certain affixes that they have chosen. So like, it's like going to be a leaderboard, but really it's going to be more like the top teams are just going to pick whatever affixes are the easiest. And then everybody can compete and be like, okay, let's come up with strategies to try and beat this. And then you might pick, you know, pick another set of affixes, and then like all the teams can compete on that leaderboard and see who can do the best with those affixes. I think it would be kind of cool if they set up something like this, where players get to choose whatever they want to choose, and it eliminates the randomness from the highest level of play, so people can just try and push and really practice and get good at it. I mean, like in a raid scenario, you get to practice the boss hundreds of times, right? You don't really get to do that in Mythic Plus in the same way, because you have to like wait for the next week and then the next week, and then you're back to the affixes that you want to be back to. So this is just a full-blown guess, guys, but I don't know. I'd love to hear what you guys think about what they're gonna do. It says they're making big changes, so while they don't mention what these changes are, they should be coming out in a blog post in the next week or two, and seem really focused on separating the goals and frustrations regarding affixes amongst the two groups of people. I think that's great. We're looking at this from the point of Mythic Plus trying to serve multiple audiences and try to come up with a one-size-fits-all solution. Oh, sorry. And in trying to come up with a one-size-fits-all solution, it has caused problems. Ultimately, like, guys, this is actually encouraging, I think. They are recognizing that there's like hardcore players who really want to push, but that's really difficult with the rotating affixes. And then there's less hardcore players who don't mind doing each affix each week and just getting their keys done. So they need to come up with a solution that can hit both of those groups, because they're kind of clashing in what it's not really good, right? So, I mean, it sounds like that's good, I think, for the health of Mythic Plus. I mean, there's so much that they could do with this system. There's so much they could do. I don't really understand why they haven't expanded this yet. I mean, first of all, you could open up, like I said, let's say you get all the keys done on a +20. You open up this new level of Mythic Plus where you get to choose whatever key you want at whatever affixes you want, and you can throw them in there. What they should also do is once you get to that +20 level and you've unlocked this new, like, hardcore Mythic Plus thing, there's a bunch of new affixes that they throw in there too, and you can just try them out. They bring back all the affixes that people hated. It's just they're all options now, and then people can just try stuff like teaming and friggin' whatever. Like just bring it all in there, and then you just say, okay, everybody can just try whatever they want to try, and then you would have teams like figuring out strategies for doing a teaming week. You know, teaming plus bolstering. I don't know, that would be awful, but imagine. That's like the hardest pairing. Fortified, teaming, bolstering. And like, you just try it. And then the whole community figures out, okay, this is the hardest combination of affixes. Who can do it? Here's a challenge. Go try it. And then the teams are all going to try and figure it out. Like, that would be fun. I feel like that would create a fun environment. And you would still have regular Mythic Plus going on up to that +20 level. It would all be regular. It would all be fine. And I just feel like you could kind of have both of those systems going on at the same time.